Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in the Northwest Territories, where reaction to the government's new Indigenous employment strategy continues to pour in. For 35 years, the government of the Northwest Territories has given preference to Indigenous and non-Indigenous Northerners when hiring. On April 1st, that'll change. The GNWT announced yesterday it's scrapping its previous affirmative action policy for a new system. The biggest change is that Northerners, or longtime residents, will no longer be given priority. Instead, priority will go to all Indigenous Canadians, regardless of where they're from. The move earned immediate criticism from some NWT MLAs, including Robert Hawkins, who joins me now live in studio. Robert, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here.
Okay, great. Let's get started. When we were chatting a little bit, just setting up this conversation, you had described this situation as a mess, and I'm curious why you chose that word.
Well, I think, for starters, this feels like a betrayal of all Northerners, both Priority 1, Indigenous, and non-Indigenous long-term Northerners. So people feel as if they've been sold out by their government over a principle of saying, this isn't workable. My challenge back is, there's been plenty of ways to make this policy workable. And the fact is, the communication of it as well has been terrible. I spoke to an Indigenous leader today who frankly said they were surprised and very upset about the direction going. They were true to the fact by saying, yeah, we were consulted back in 2022 about this, but it was more, in their view, and the way I understood it, is a drive-by consultation. In other words, Indigenous employment numbers are low. We've got a strategy to change that. So my worry all along was, have you communicated that message on what that would look like? And frankly, I find it appalling that they didn't go through the specifics and the mechanisms of how people would see them. So in other words, somebody in a small community, whether they're Norman Wells, Sigachik, or even Betchikon, who applies for a job, who's Indigenous, could rightly lose out from someone from Manitoba by 1 point. Could you imagine someone from Nova Scotia beating someone in Fort McPherson over one job evaluation point? I mean, it's going to cause frustration and disruption that people don't have a preference in their own community, in their own territory.
You had posted a video as well with some of your thoughts, and in that video you mentioned that the affirmative action policy, the problem wasn't necessarily with the policy itself, but with the implementation of the policy. So I'm wondering if you can explain that.
Well, frankly, they don't measure it properly and they don't evaluate it properly. So my frustration, even when they started talking about it after I was reelected last year, originally they brought the draft concept to us, and immediately the committee was no, no, no. This is not good. We fired back say a sharply worded letter, say stop, and if you want to really follow through on the affirmative action policy, don't be afraid to monitor it, measure it, check in, see how it's working. And that's fundamentally half the broken problem right there. The other thing is, now the minister will be right. It doesn't fall under her sort of overall shingle of responsibility. But look what's just happened recently. We've had 3 deputy ministers appointed, and none of them are Indigenous that I'm aware of. Not one time it's ever been brought up that they are Dene, Métis, or Inuit, or Inuvial in our particular general case. That said, you would think that there would be a great opportunity. I went through the department of the executive. I scrolled on the territorial website and said, hey, I know a lot of people. Are any of these Indigenous? And I'm scrolling through and seeing so many people who are not Indigenous, a department that should be on the vanguard of this problem. So the government, lastly, I'll just say, has the ability through direct appointments and training programs to bring people up with them and say, we know you have had challenges in the sense of educational opportunities. Maybe you've had employment challenges, but we see you as being the next leader. Why don't we bring you along and create ways to help generate this excitement? And those are the frustrating problems.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of touches upon maybe some of what you were saying, but under the old policy, the number of Indigenous employees in the GNWT has been hovering around 30%.
That's
percentage,
correct. Yeah.
Which is what GNWT has expressed, not really what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. So if not, you mentioned some things under the old policy, but I'm just guessing if not a new policy, I'm wondering what would you like to see to get those numbers to be more proportional?
Well, I think first of all, we have to clearly identify what's a reasonable number. I mean, it's not easy to say, oh, it's 50%, but that said, you have to start somewhere with that conversation. I think 29%, I think as stated officially, close to 30%, as you say, is quite low. But if you look at it, the higher numbers of Indigenous employment are the lower entry-level positions, not the managers, senior managers, or the executives. And the government at any time can start appointing people. Every cabinet meeting has the ability to do direct appointments. They're all done in secret, so in other words, we don't know who they're appointing, why they're appointing, where they're appointing them, and most of the staff in those departments wouldn't have any idea. Somebody comes to work on one day as a temporary employee, the next day they're a permanent employee. No one would know the difference. One of the things I've asked for accountability is how do we communicate that as well? I mean, I believe direct appointments make perfect sense in certain circumstances. How are we getting someone who can do to do more? How can we get someone who represents well to represent better, inspire others? So the government has all the policy tools. They just need to follow through on them.
Okay. And then really quickly, just to ask you to maybe sum up what you were hearing from Indigenous leaders as well. You pointed a little bit to that in our first question, but I wonder just what you're hearing from the public for feedback for this.
Well, so far, my email and my Facebook Messenger have had a lot of very short messages in the sense of they're direct to the point. They're mad, feel betrayed, anger, and I'm saying articulate them, get them out there. Don't just send them to me. Send them to your MLA, send them to the media, say them on Facebook. I'm telling people, just make sure it's communicated properly. Back to the Indigenous leadership, I think that they're going to be very frustrated the next time they meet this cabinet and the Premier, of course, and they're going to be asking what is going on. I mean, I think drive-by consultation is ridiculous, and I think that's what happened in October 2022 and December when they followed up in 2022, and I don't think at any time they spelt out all your community employment opportunities, the priority given to them is gone, and that is frustrating. This affects priority 1, this affects priority 2, but I think it has a much harder impact on P1 in Northerners, and that's not being realized till now. And I think that conversation is going to have to be a tough one. This is the minister's chance, including the cabinet, to rebuke this policy, pull it back, and say, hey, we made a mistake. Even I'll say, I'm okay with that. Recognize your mistake. Let's move on.
Okay. Robert, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yukon MP Brendan Hanley has joined the Liberal MPs who are calling for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation. This comes after Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's resignation on Monday. Her resignation came hours before she was scheduled to announce Canada's fall economic statement. Take a listen.
You know, of course, I've been hearing from Yukoners, from constituents, from supporters, from donors for really several months that it was time for a change in leadership. And so I took those comments and those thoughts directly to the Prime Minister, back into the summer, in a private conversation with the Prime Minister, in caucus executive conversations, because I'm chair of the Prairies and North Caucus. And then at National Caucus, I was one of those who stood up and said, look, for the good of the country, I think you need to make the decision on setting the pathway for new leadership. So I still believe this, and I had called for a secret ballot within caucus. I think really what it came to, of course, everything has come to a head because now we've had a cabinet minister who has made such a significant move in that direction, that it's kind of rallied many people within caucus to find their voice.
Hanley says he does plan to run for his seat again in the next election. This week, the loonie dipped below 70 cents US for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. It comes amid Donald Trump's tariff threats and turmoil in the Trudeau government. Anis Haydari looks at what a weaker dollar means for our economy and our wallets.
Traveling Canadians say a dollar worth 69 cents US isn't nice.
Just sucks. It's become horrible the past year.
Killing us. And it's just going down, 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 down.
I do remember one time it was at par, but that was a while ago.
That was more than a decade ago. these days,
Well, the dollar is definitely on a tailspin.
experts say it's about where to expect growth.
It always comes down to the economy. That is the number one biggest driving force of how the dollar moves. So if the expectation is that the US economy and GDP will do better than Canada, money and investment will move there.
And tariff threats from Donald Trump may keep dragging down Canada's dollar.
I actually am worried that or concerned, I should say, that it is going a bit weaker yet until we get, some relief on the tariff front, or, some better economic news to help support the currency.
After the Federal Reserve cut interest rates in the U.S., Canada's dollar fell even more. A low Canadian dollar can make imports more expensive. Think fruits and vegetables from outside Canada. Though things sold or exported in U.S. dollars can benefit. And for tourism, visitors may get more bang for their U.S. buck.
Those that have US dollars, because this is basically almost free money for them in terms of the increased margin.
Definitely something some Americans notice.
It's great. Clothes, Aritzia's 30% off. It's really good.
As for where the Canadian dollar goes next, there are forecasts it could drop even more to its lowest level in nearly a decade. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Imperial Oil is putting pressure on an NWT regulator to renew its expiring water license. Right now, it's on hold because there's going to be an environmental assessment. Without that water license, the company says it'll need to hastily shut down its operations in Norman Wells. It's warning that will have consequences for the Sawtooth region. The CBC's Leanie Lambrink has more.
Imperial Oil flagged the issue months ago. It says that its water license is set to expire this coming March, and its application to renew it is on hold. But without some kind of interim or emergency water license, it's going to be forced to shut down. It laid out last week more detail about why a winter shutdown is a problem. Imperial says there's a risk that pipelines will freeze and crack, and if there's a leak, it won't be able to detect those in real time, putting the environment at risk. The company says the closure would also deal a blow to the Sawtooth's economy. The Sawtooth Land and Water Board is responsible for Imperial Oil's water license, and it responded to the company's warning late last week. The board is considering renewing Imperial Oil's water license for 3 years on an emergency basis, but it says it needs to be convinced the situation is an emergency. It's asking interested parties to provide feedback on the matter up until December 20th. After that, the board says it'll make a decision, although it didn't say exactly when that decision would happen. Leanie Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The Yukon's new mental wellness unit is expected to open this June, several months later than expected. And some people still have questions about how the new units will improve care in the territory. Gabrielle Plonka has the details.
The Yukon only has one place to receive inpatient care for psychiatry, and it's been under construction since June 2023. The Yukon Hospital Corporation says when it does open, it'll have a sleek new design, culturally safe activities, and staff with safety training. It'll replace the hospital's former secure medical unit, which psychiatrists at the time said lacked basic safety measures, and patients said failed them over and over. In the past 11 years, Steve Hahn has been admitted to the hospital 7 times. He's a former flight nurse with post-traumatic stress. He says the hospital repeatedly discharged him without a long-term care plan or any effort towards a diagnosis.
I think a lot of the pain, anguish, and really some of the reluctance I now have in accessing care may have been mitigated.
Hahn says he's seen the public plans for the new mental wellness unit. While outdoor space and better safety is all promised, he doesn't see plans for actual patient programming anywhere.
Here I look at how much has been spent on this expansion. It's truly incredible. But at the same time is where the rubber meets the road. What is a metric for patient outcomes? And I think that I may be not reading it right, but I'm just not seeing it. You can have a beautiful facility, But if nobody works there, or nobody of substance and of specialty works there, we're just destined to repeat ourselves.
The delay of the mental wellness unit also spurred criticism from the territory's official opposition. The Yukon Party is accusing the government of underfunding the hospital corporation. A financial report did show the hospital deferred capital funding for the unit about 2 years ago and repurposed the money to make payroll.
The hospitals need adequate funding to be able to meet their operational needs. We also need to see the mental wellness unit project advance and see the surgical services project that the government has sat on for over 5 years now.
The Yukon Hospital Corporation declined an interview with CBC. In an internal email to staff, it said the delays were caused by construction issues. Gabrielle Planca, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Earth is our collective home. That makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.
Being there means being here. Russian forces, they want it badly. It's just a fraction of the mess here in Port aux Basques. To witness, to listen, to share. I do worry about them. Adrian Arsenault reports on CBC News, stream free.
We're often drawn to people who have something we want in ourselves.
But it doesn't mean living like you're running out of time. It means living in a place of hope.
A Northwest Territories airline will be shutting down in the new year. Fort Smith's Northwestern Air lease, or NWAL, will cease operations in January. The family-owned airline has been operating in Fort Smith for almost 60 years. It's currently the only airline in town. The announcement comes after weeks of flight cancellations due to pilot shortages. In a post online, the company thanked everyone for their continued support. The airline plans to continue flights in their Cessna aircraft for charters, but Yellowknife-based Air Tindy will be taking over the scheduled flight operations. NWAL's last scheduled flight will be January 16th. Nunavut's smallest village has been under a continual boil water notice for 9 months and counting. But a new water tank is coming to Aluk, and residents are optimistic it could finally end their water woes. Samuel Watt has that story.
There's something lurking in Alpaluk's water.
When are we going to use it as washer or shower? We smell that fish.
The village's source of clean water is a nearby river. They pump as much of that water as they can into a water tank before the river freezes in winter. But when that tank is empty, they have to draw from a lake, and that's where the fishy water is festering.
We have to announce it by radio, FM radio, to the community concerning the water. If you need to boil the water.
In a written statement, the Katavik Regional Government says the boil water notices are precautionary. That's because the chlorination process is done manually, and that's subject to human error. They say there's no water quality issue in Alpaluk, just a water quantity issue. That's why there's a $2.9 million project to build a new water tank. Nuna Apahatak has waited years for that. She's the interim principal of Alpaluk School. They installed a water filter system last winter, but before that happened...
We used to boil the water like huge pot.
Since August, they've had to shut down the school twice due to water and sewage issues. So all eyes are on the new, bigger water tank set to be delivered by summer 2025. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
As we told you last night, the CBC's Luke Carroll is in Sak Harbor, and he took in some Arctic games for youth. But that wasn't just about the games. It was also a homecoming for the event organizer and a chance to welcome a new teacher and her family to the community. Here's more from Luke.
For Alyssa Carpenter, getting the opportunity to teach youth in her hometown traditional games she grew up with is her way of giving back. Carpenter runs the Western Arctic Youth Collective, an Indigenous youth-led initiative. Earlier this year, Paktutit, Inuit Woman of Canada, recognized her as the Young Inuk Woman of the Year. She was born in Inuvik and raised in Sak Harbor. Carpenter says it's great to be back, and she didn't come alone.
I get to bring my daughter. She gets to spend time with her cousins and her friends that she's growing up with. And I just get to see young people grow up and just have opportunities that I had. And it's something that they can see and be like, I can go beyond my community. I can connect with other communities. I can learn a little bit about myself, or just have something really positive to look forward to.
Carpenter was raised by recreation coordinators. She says it's a demanding role and includes long hours. The event was supervised by the school's new teacher. Ibiye Dagogo has been working at the school since October. She says participating in activities like this are what makes her and her family feel welcome.
Overall, I think that the fact that I'm accepted in the community has made the transition really, really easy for us. And I'm here with my daughter as well, who is 11 years old. She's in grade 7, and she'll be 12 very soon. And just like I was saying earlier, the sense of community, the sense of togetherness. For instance, she's participating in the Arctic sports activity. That is really exciting for her. She has never had that, she has never seen it, and she keeps practicing with them. So just that acceptance has made the transition really good for us.
Residents say that playing games, sharing food, and laughing during the long winter days here is critical. The Western Arctic Youth Collective is going to be organizing a ladies' night tonight in Sak Harbor. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Sak Harbor.
A Dawson City resident is getting honored for her service as the local postmaster in a big way. Elaine Grandy is a longtime Dawson resident who spent the last 26 years working at the local post office, and today she retired. The post office was filled with people who were invited to her surprise retirement party. Among them was the town's mayor, Stephen Johnson, and his fellow councillors. Johnson proclaimed December 23rd, 2024 as Elaine Grandy Day as soon as Grandy got back from her lunch break.
Elaine has a big heart and is a wonderful member of our community.
Everyone there wished Grandy well on her new chapter of retirement. Students from St. Patrick's High School spread some Christmas cheer today. Every year, they collect donations from the community and then they gather to form a human chain to deliver the haul to the local Salvation Army. Check it out.
Hi, this is Major Tony Brashet, the Executive Director for the Salvation Army here in Yellowknife, and today we're here with the students from St. Pat's School as they're doing their, I believe it's their 25th annual human chain of food that they're delivering from their school right to our food bank. Even though it's almost minus 40 out, we get so excited about this, and when I seen all the yellow jackets heading over here and the bylog coming to close the street, it's just a very high energy few moments of time here. And to see the energy of these young people as they're doing such good work for the community, it's just heartwarming.
My name is Malika Mirza. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Interact Club, and the Interact Club is the one that kind of makes sure that Operation Christmas runs annually, smoothly, and everything.
And I'm Audrey. I'm also co-president. I've been co-president for 2 years. And Interact is a social justice organization that helps with lots of food drives and warm clothing drives. And overall, we're students who really love to give back to the community.
We love how kind of the privacy of it, because we know that these people who might be accessing the food shelter may be our students, maybe people who are living among us that we don't know about. So we love that we're giving back to people who we may not even know, but just the love and the charity of that. I just want to say thank you to everybody again, the teachers and the students who made this possible, because without the students, we would not be able to do this human chain and everything. And then, of course, our grads who are on like the front lines, as you saw, giving the food to the Salvation Army. And then I also want to thank the people who are here from Salvation Army, talking to the Interact Club about how much this means and how many families they support throughout the holidays.
And like Malika said about how many families like this supports, I just want to remind everyone that every little donation matters, and when it all accumulates, it's so much. And our donations are going to feed so many families over Christmas, and we're going to make so many people's holidays better, and just they're going to be so happy. And I think the community support and the joy that it brings people is the best part.
Really incredible effort there. So many people taking part. The 7th annual Kakpik Fashion Show was a hit in Arviat Nunavut over the weekend. On Sunday, 97 garments created by 22 seamstresses from Arviat walked the runway. The CBC's Selma Eccles takes us there.
People from Arviat gathered at the John Arnalug High School to join the 7th annual Kakpik Fashion Show. Models showcasing beautiful parkas and amautit made by local talented sewers. Chelsea St. John is a seamstress and involved with Kakpik fashion since 2015. She says she is very proud of the talented sewers and their passion is vibrant. St. John is encouraging other communities to be involved in 2025.
We would love for out-of-towners to also join. We would love it. We understand the time crunch too, that we try to have it Christmas time, but next year we're aiming for November. That way everyone from out of town can come.
People were smiling and laughing as they tried on the garments after the fashion show. Jade Borden-Lee was one of the many happy customers.
I bought a new parka from Chelsea St. John, or Sophia's outerwear, and it's red with sealskin, and I love it a lot. I'm really excited.
Older seamstresses are encouraged that the tradition of making warm clothing is alive and well. Selma Eccles, CBC News, Arviat.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
When we work to end inequity, we help start something better. Support even the odds.
This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News North, streaming now.
I've been waiting 8 years for this moment. It feels like magical. I'm still like pinching myself.
Bakers, now you are finally here.
Ruby! You're gonna regret this.
You
tried to kill my son.
You're the one who tried to kill him. It's all my fault.
Coronation Street. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I want to have a brew.
Moments that are so on trend right now. Ticket pricing, artificial intelligence, being a Swiftie. Commotion, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.